He never threw food away in his life. He kept used nails in a tin can. He folded plastic bags before tossing them. He fixed his shoes 3 times before even thinking about buying new ones. When you were a child, you thought it was strange. Sometimes it was even embarrassing. Today, you understand that that wasn't detachment to objects. It was a relationship with the world that you rarely see in anyone from your generation. It was someone who knew deep in their bones what it means to have nothing. Your grandfather grew up in the 1930s, and what happened in that decade shaped the brain, the character, and the nervous system of an entire generation in a way that no other generation will ever experience again. Today, you're going to understand exactly what that was, and why, if you stop to look at yourself, you'll realize you inherited more than you think. The first thing you need to understand is what it was actually like to live in the 1930s. It wasn't just poverty, it was scarcity as a permanent reality. The Great Depression, which broke out in 1929 and dragged on through the entire decade, threw 1/4 of the working population into unemployment. Factories closing, banks collapsing, entire families living off charity or off the land. Your grandfather didn't wake up wondering what he was going to do. He woke up wondering if there was going to be anything to eat. And in the middle of all that, a child was growing up. He didn't learn resilience on a seminar. He didn't read a self-help book. He didn't have a coach. Life showed up every day with a new bill to pay, and he figured it out because there was no other option. And that's exactly where the first characteristic that makes this generation different begins. The ability to function when everything is going wrong at the same time. Psychologists have a technical name for this: autonomous stress regulation. It's the ability of the nervous system to stabilize quickly when a threat appears, instead of freezing or breaking down. This ability isn't something you're born with, it's built. And it's built through repeated exposure to real uncertainty in childhood, where there's no adult to fix it, no safety net, no quick way out. Your grandfather at 8 years old already knew what it felt like not to know if the month would close. He had already seen adults cry over debt. He had already understood, without anyone explaining it, that the world wasn't waiting for him. That, repeated day after day, created something that therapy today tries to rebuild in adults who never needed it when they were children. Have you ever noticed that when a crisis hits, there's one type of person who stops, thinks, and acts, and another type who completely falls apart? Your grandfather was the first type, not because he was cold, not because he didn't feel, because he was calibrated, without realizing it, to not dissolve when the ground shakes. The second characteristic is his relationship with work, and it's almost impossible to teach. In the 1930s, work wasn't personal fulfillment. It wasn't purpose. It wasn't identity. Work was survival. And when work is survival, you don't wait around to feel motivated before you start. You start because you have to. Your grandfather didn't procrastinate because he was low on energy. He didn't wait for the right moment. He didn't need external motivation to get out of his chair. He got up because the day wasn't waiting. And there was another layer to this that science only came to understand decades later. Work in the 1930s was almost always manual: planting, building, sewing, fixing. The body was involved in everything. And neuroscience studies show that repetitive physical work develops something rare: the ability to sustain effort over long periods without needing immediate reward. Today, we call that delayed gratification. Your grandfather never heard that term. He just knew that a plant doesn't become a harvest overnight, and he waited without drama. The third characteristic is the quietest one, and it may be the most powerful of all. Your grandfather didn't talk much about what he felt. Not because he was repressed, but because he learned early on that talking too much about the problem doesn't solve the problem. In the 1930s, the community was the only safety net that existed. There was no government arriving quickly, no bank lending easily. What existed was the neighbor, the family, the street, and asking for help in that context had a price. You needed to have something to offer in return. That created an entire culture of silent reciprocity. People helped without expecting thanks. They accepted help without making a scene. They solved things and moved on. You've probably seen this in your grandfather. He would show up, fix whatever needed fixing, and when you went to thank him, he was already talking about something else. He didn't need the recognition. He had been formed in a time when solving was enough. The praise was the problem no longer existing. And there's one last thing that's rarely talked about with this generation, and it explains a lot. Your grandfather lived through the hardest years of the century and then watched the world change completely. From the scarcity of the 1930s to the growth of the 1950s and 60s, the transformation was radical. Industry growing, cities expanding, technology arriving. He didn't resist. He went along with it. He learned what he needed to learn, used what turned out to be useful, and kept what he knew couldn't be lost. That movement of absorbing the new without throwing away the essential is what cognitive researchers call adaptive flexibility. And it's one of the rarest abilities there is, because it's easy to resist everything new, and it's easy to embrace everything that comes along and throw out everything old. The hard part, the rare part, the thing that very few people manage, is knowing what stays and what goes. Your grandfather knew, not because he was wise in the poetic sense, because he had been forged in a time that teaches, in practice, how to tell the essential from the unnecessary. That stubbornness that used to irritate you sometimes, that practicality that looked like coldness, that way of looking at a problem and going straight to the point, without detours, without spiraling, without needing to process out loud. That wasn't personality. That wasn't luck. That wasn't just the way he was. It was the result of a formation that the world no longer offers. A childhood that didn't protect you from difficulty, it protected you inside difficulty. That didn't remove the obstacle, it taught you to get through it. And if you stop to look at yourself honestly, you'll realize that some of that is in you too, in the way you react when pressure shows up, in your ability to handle what comes without needing everyone to validate you first, in the fact that when things get serious, the people around you look to you expecting an answer. That's not a coincidence. You inherited more than the last name. Tell us in the comments, which of your grandfather's characteristics do you recognize in yourself today? Because I'm sure there's at least one. And if this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Every week there's a new video about the events that shaped the 1930s. See you in the next one.